lots
Oh,
of
Mari
people.
Carmen. Yay. I met Mari Carmen when I was in Warwick, England. And she's a video expert herself. So it's great to have you, Mari. And we are just going to give people another
Here.
moment
It's wonderful. We have lots of
to kind of join. And we are very hyped also, James. Extremely hyped. I think I've had my coffee this morning. So definitely use the Q&A area. It's just wonderful to see all of you coming in from different parts of the world. And some of you, of course, who are our colleagues at Hunter College and at Rhode Island College. It is 11:02. We like to be punctual, so I think we are going to kind of slowly begin. I'm going to put up a poll now. So if you could notice the poll as it pops up and give us your responses there. And that'll give people another chance to tell us where they're from in the Q&A. So we have two questions there. Julie, give me a thumbs up if that's popping up for you. It's not popping up for you. Okay. Let's see. Let me try that again. Yes, awesome. Okay, so we have two questions. Question one is, in which context would you say you have developed your classroom observation skills? More than one answer can be given. And the second question is, in which contexts would you say your teacher candidates have developed their classroom observation skills? Again, more than one answer is fine. We're going to give you a moment to check on those two questions. And meanwhile, you can also make sure to use our Q&A area to tell us where you are dialing in from, where you're at. South Carolina, fabulous. And we'll also let everyone kind of orient into this space this morning. So thank you for your answers to question 1 and 2. All right, great. And I know, Julie, it's like a good Zoom policy to continually talk, so we disappeared, but I am repeating myself. So thanks everyone for being patient. We did have a lot of people register, and I just want to make sure people have a chance to, how it is with Zoom. Even I had trouble getting on this morning. So Cal State Bakersfield. Very nice.
I think it's also important, we'll say this again, but while we're waiting for everybody to get on, we're also recording this because there's going to be so much wonderful information. We hope that those that aren't able to get on, or if the time zone just doesn't work, this will be available as well.
Yay. Nice. So Purdue is getting back in touch with Connecticut roots. That's awesome. We're all interconnected somehow.
Yes.
We really are. So it's great. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to give you another moment to answer the poll. I always like to get to 80%. I don't know. It's just a thing when I do a poll. I feel like that's a good amount of people who have had a chance to take a look and give their opinion. And then we can begin to move into our presentation for today. So I appreciate everyone's patience, especially with obviously a large group on Zoom. It takes a little bit longer, to get everybody in the room and everyone situated. So really appreciate that you are with us, and we just wanted to go big. We wanted to make sure everyone because Julie and I are teacher educators. We'll be talking about who we are in a moment, but we know how it is when you're trying to kind of come up with materials and ideas around video. And it's really nice to have a community of practice where we can share ideas. So I have I think I'm going to, Julie, think I can stop the poll now. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll. And I'm going to share the results of the poll for a moment so we can take a look at that. So in which context would you all, you participants here this morning, say that you developed your classroom observation skills? And it looks like slight majority on actually a course on instructional supervision or even a course on observation. You also did a lot of self-teaching through reading or studying. Apprenticeship of observation. So you're doing a lot of what you've seen other supervisors do. And even up to 20% of you actually say you've had no specific training for classroom observation. So let's take a look now for your teacher candidates. So 40% of you say that your teachers have taken a course on instructional supervision. I find that really surprising.
Wow.
I would love to hear where that's happening, because for so many of us, our teacher education programs are so full of required courses for certification that we generally don't see that happening. So if that is the truth for you, we would love to know about that. Maybe you could put that into the Q&A and tell us more about that. A lot of it, though, is this apprenticeship of observation, doing what others see. And of course, about 30% got that last one, no specific training for classroom observation. And so that's really where we are coming in this morning, is to talk about really the need for those of us who are doing this work with observation and analyzing teaching, as well, and especially for our teacher candidates, to recognize that they probably don't have formal training. And that becoming a teacher doesn't mean that you have learned how to really do observation or classroom observation. And that's sort of sometimes assumed before we even start to look at video of teaching, is we jump over that important step, which is, first of all, just learning how to look, learning how to observe. So we'll be talking about that. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm actually going to stop my video. I'm going to keep, and maybe Julie as well. Perfect. So we are here. We're continuing to be here. You'll hear our voices, but we figured it would probably be less distracting for you to work this way. So Julie, just jump in anytime, since I can't read your face to tell me. Okay, just stop me anytime.
We're good.
And
the only thing, do you want to stop sharing the results for the poll?
Yeah, I thought I had. Let's see. You might still see them because you're a host. I'm not sure.
Okay, I got it. Don't worry about it. Keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I stopped sharing. So everybody just move that to the side if it's on top of your screen there. Okay, perfect, Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So yeah, so my name is Laura Becker. I'm a professor in the School of Education at Hunter College at the City University of New York. We are located at 68th and Lexington, and I miss being on the campus very much and being in New York City. And Julie Horwitz is at Rhode Island College. And I'll let you introduce yourself quick, Julie.
Okay, I'm Julie Horwitz. Like Laura said, I'm a professor of educational studies at Rhode Island College in Providence, Rhode Island, and I too miss being on campus.
Okay, so we want to talk to you today on kind of 4 areas. The first is the evolution of this work, some foundations in terms of research and theory of where we're coming from in creating the work itself, which are amazing projects from teacher educators at both of our institutions, and also some ideas about future directions, because we know that there is a lot of interest always in video for teacher learning, but especially now during this digital phenomenon. So first of all, the evolution of the work. So Hunter College has had a history of working with video of teaching since about 2003. And we began by asking all the student teachers to take one of the observation visits and turn that into a video-based observation, so that all the candidates, all the teacher candidates in our School of Education began using video, sort of just, uniformly. And that created, of course, a lot of opportunities to learn about video, just even from the basics, the tech aspects, the logistics, as well as how to really integrate it into the student teaching seminar, and then backwards. And then I began to know Julie through another context. And Julie, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about how we came into the work at Rhode Island College.
Sure, thanks. So for 2 years, I'm no longer anymore, but 2 years with my partner, Jerry August, who is on here as well. And so if she wants to say anything in the chat that I forgot, please feel free to add, Jerry. We were interim co-deans of the School of Education at Rhode Island College. We now have a new dean, Dr. Janine Dingus, who's supporting this work, continues to support this work. But in our tenure as interim co-deans, we knew that we wanted to bring video analysis into all of our teacher preparation work and actually our community programs as well. We wanted to do this for a few reasons. As we were moving towards more clinical preparation, we knew finding strong placement sites was going to be really difficult, just because of the number of placements we needed, and Rhode Island's pretty small. We also knew that we wanted to get students engaged in learning how to observe and being critically reflective practitioners right up front in their program. Often we wait until the end of programs, and we knew we wanted to start right away. So for 2 years, we're in our third year now, we've been running a video analysis fellows program. So we have fellows from each of our school departments within the School of Education, working with Laura to convert some of their classroom assignments into video analysis projects. It is continuing as we speak, and hopefully today you'll see some of that. What we're noticing is the more and more we're doing this, the more and more it's going across all of our courses now.
Absolutely. And so similar work has been happening at Hunter College with, inviting faculty to engage with courses at whatever point they're at in the teacher ed process, and infusing video into it. And our Dean, Michael Middleton, has been very supportive of this work. I believe Michael is here. I'm going to just see if he wants to say a couple of words.
Hi, Laura.
Hi there. Thanks
Hi,
for being here. Thanks for being here.
Sure. Just really quickly, I just want to thank everybody for joining the session today, and thank Laura and Julie. Thank you for your leadership on this issue. It's critical that we continue finding ways to innovate, and congratulations to the faculty who spent so much time really putting their effort and work out there for our students. But what I like most about this event is that it's also sharing knowledge. We often sort of do innovative work, but we don't often then take it the next step to share and try to affect change more broadly. So thank you both for your leadership. And I just want to also thank all the folks who are attending today during such troubled times and difficult times. I know all of us have had challenges around the public health crisis, and many of our colleagues are involved in public and community-based protest and action right now in support of our Black and Brown colleagues and students and community members, and thank you for that work. But just want to acknowledge that all of you taking time in the middle of all that to continue your professional development, continue supporting innovation in this work is really significant. So thanks for that, and
thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it.
That's really wonderful of you, and thank you so much for being here. And I think what Julie described at Rhode Island College is similar to Hunter, which is you really need leadership in your College of Education to advance the work. It's great, like our dean said, that faculty are always innovating and creating projects, but the leveraging the knowledge, bringing it wider out of our own programs into departments and across departments, and now today across the country and the world is really very exciting and dynamic, because we all, of course, learn from each other. And again, also to reiterate that the fact that you all are here today, given everything going on, is just even more just a beautiful act because you're continuing to really think about your teacher education students. So we're going to.
Laura, can I just add one?
Jump in.
I just want to acknowledge, my dean really wanted to be here today, and she instead was called into a meeting with the president of our college. So I just want to, she was really sad that she could not attend, but still supports all of this.
Yeah, she's been very, very supportive, and we miss having her here. So we'll greet her for us. We'll give her the video. Because we're all about video, so we have to record this, of course. So, all right, foundations. So in brief, I'm not going to give you too much of a lecture, hopefully, about the research and theory and studies of using video in teacher ed, but we did want to give you some basis for moving forward into the particulars of the projects that were designed. So kind of tried to put it into this slide as the different foci or focus of a video that you might use of teaching with your candidates, as well as some of the functions that doing so has. So along the top, we have learner focused. So this could be a video that is really getting candidates to focus on a learner or a pair of learners or a small group. The instructor may or may not even be in the scene in the video itself. Instructor focus, so that obviously is what we typically see, where we have the instructor plus students. But you might find in some cases that you don't need a lot of visibility of the students in the clip to still get a lot of information and observation data from just observing the instructor. There are also more environmentally focused videos where maybe there's no students in the room. It's simply a video kind of pan of a classroom. So you could get a sense of materials and where spaces are created in classrooms, what kind of materials are on the walls, how are there home languages, for example, representative students in the room, things like that. And then a lot of work that is very much classroom interaction focused on the talk that happens in classrooms. And there's a lot of rich data there, of course, for discourse analysis. In terms of functions, we use video in different ways with teacher education students. A lot of it, of course, is developmental, and that means not only developing myself by looking at myself teaching, but also looking at others so that I can learn practice and assess myself, improve my skills by seeing others in action. And that kind of relates to the illustrative functions where we are getting an idea of a method, how it looks, or sometimes aspects of teaching that we read and talk about, but are sometimes hard to describe. So for example, what does culturally relevant pedagogy look like? What does it look like in a kindergarten classroom, in a high school classroom, in different settings? So those kinds of videos can really bring to life concepts or more abstract notions of teaching that our candidates are wrestling with. Also critical functions where we take up dilemmas of practice, problems of practice, persistent challenges in practice. So it's not about criticizing teachers, it's about understanding typical dynamics, typical kinds of interactions, or creating scenarios for teacher candidates to play out potentially what could happen in different classrooms and different results. It can also be critical in the sense of critical consciousness. So ways teachers talk, ways that they react to students and either uplift them or suppress them unwittingly in classroom talk. So those are different kinds of functions that we might think of as more of a critical use of video. And then the one that I think a lot of us immediately hear about or go to, which is the evaluative function. A lot of that associates video with, for example, the EdTPA. or some kind of even local performance-based assessment of teaching, where teachers are being evaluated based on some external set of criteria. And that could be self-evaluation, it could be supervisory evaluation, it could be peer, but it's functionally evaluative. So the reason that I think it's important to pull that aside is we tend to, again, jump immediately into the evaluative. So most of the work that we do is to try to stay away from the evaluative until we absolutely have to or need to, so that we can see more, so that we can describe more and observe without immediately jumping to it's good or bad, or sort of that hot, cold kind of ways we approach video. So we'll talk a little more about that as it's built into our projects. So the research on using video for teacher learning is quite extensive. Teachers were being videoed, and maybe some of you like me were videoed with the old VHS tapes in a big clunky camera. And so that started in the 70s and 80s. And of course, as video became more convenient, more portable through digital technologies, we see that video is just easy to use. It's frequently used, but sometimes it's used in ways that make teachers really anxious, really shut down, and we feel very vulnerable when we are video recorded. So it is even more so for someone who's learning to teach. So they're learning, they're experimenting, and then they're also recording this event on a video. So everything about our work is really to promote, first of all, just the noticing skills without having to share your video or have it be judged, but just how powerful video is for just seeing. And that can be effectively done when we first look at others' video of people we don't know. That is a powerful way for us to just be able to focus on the talk, the movement, the moves, etc., and begin to just develop those descriptive, low inference note-taking skills, which, as we mentioned before, a lot of us learned or we were trained to do them, but often teachers were not trained to do that. So they immediately jump to a lot of judgment when they are encountering video. So a lot of research talks about how powerful video is to develop those noticing skills, because of course, and I noticed a comment earlier about live observation versus video. So I want to make it really clear, we're not talking about replacing live observation whatsoever. They have different functions. What we're really talking about is taking advantage of the potential in video. And of course, a main one is the stop, rewind, replay possibilities, which you can't get when you watch in real time. So by being able to watch or rewatch a segment of teaching, we see more and more and more in that moment. And so it is really more of a magnifying glass than a full scope, you know. So the noticing skills, a lot of research talks about how powerful that is. And if you send candidates out to do observation, you really don't know what they're seeing. They report back to you. You have no way really to facilitate what they've noticed. You can't challenge them. You can't add on to it because you didn't see it. But when you are all working with video, you can get to better understand and assess what your teacher candidates are noticing and taking away. The cognitive dissonance, there's been a lot of work on that with video. And of course, there is a sort of a shock effect psychologically by seeing ourselves, by hearing ourselves. And once we get past that initial dissonance is really the disconnect between what we thought we were doing in a class and what we see ourselves doing later when we watch the video. And in that dissonance is a strong potential for learning and growth, because we want to be on that learning edge. We want to find those places in our practice that surprise us. And when we're told those things by a supervisor, I noticed you didn't do this, or why did you do that? Sometimes candidates really aren't seeing it. They can't yet see it potentially. But if a candidate notices that particular aspect themselves, then they're able to readjust and focus on the learning they want to have. And a lot of that then moves then into evaluation. That video is very effective to align people's self-perception with external criteria, because sometimes we use criteria like rubrics or checklists with teachers, and they don't exactly understand what those even mean. So video can help those criteria come to life. And then that shared vision, there's been a lot of work on how it creates kind of a fidelity of vision, a community vision of what effective practice, quote unquote, looks like. So I'm going to move ahead. One of the things that we mentioned earlier is that it's really important for us to not look at video only at the end when we're evaluating students, for example, in student teaching or practicum, but earlier. And at the beginning stage of a teacher ed program, it's really about the process of looking, just learning to observe, learning to see the richness of classroom data without judging the teacher, just examining teaching. Then as they move into sort of the middle of their program, it's more about specifics, particular methods, et cetera, that we want to help teachers see and recognize as part of their professional identity in our discipline areas. And then eventually is that learning to look for evaluative purposes, which they will take into their career, because of course they go on into settings where they will be observed by evaluators, a supervisor, administrator, a coach. And we want them to leave empowered to see as well and to look and not be dependent on others to observe them and provide them with that information, but to own the process themselves. So in designing a task or a learning event with your teacher candidates using video of teaching, these are some key questions that you can consider that our panelists also worked with. The first is, of course, what are the goals for teacher learning you have in mind? How does video support them? So it's not just about using video, of course, it's about in which instances does video serve as a great artifact? In some cases, a student work sample or a lesson plan or photos, those are better artifacts for the goals you have in mind. But for other goals, video is quite effective. So for which ones? The second question, what kind of video best suits the task you have designed? I'm going to talk about that a little more in a moment, because there's a lot of choice around the video material. And then the preparation, question 3, how are you scaffolding or getting teachers ready to take full advantage of the task? So again, repeating, you don't want to have teachers videoing for the very first time when they're doing EdTPA, because you want them to be really ready to look, see, and analyze, and not just jump into it as an evaluative piece.
Laura, can I add a piece to that?
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I just want to highlight, this is what we did at Rhode Island College. We often use video at the very end in student teaching, but we really knew we wanted to teach students starting in our very first course how to use video as a reflective tool and not as a gotcha. So starting in our very first course now, we are teaching students how to unpack their bias, unpack all of their stuff so that they can be critically reflective practitioners starting on day one.
Yes, and I think one of the pieces with the video material is, again, that different materials for different moments across the teacher ed continuum. Because of course, when you're all the way at the end of student teaching, you are probably going to want to work with a full-length video, a complete lesson. But you don't need complete lessons when you're just beginning to look and you're at the beginning stages. So This is an excerpt from my recent book on video and teacher learning, which I'll share a little more about later. But this is just kind of a quick visual for some of the aspects that you often think through when you're choosing the video material for that task that you want to design. The content area, is it a particular discipline area, or is it more of a grade level, or is it more of a type of move, like asking probing questions? What is the content that you want to have? What is the context? Teachers generally respond much better to video that looks like where they teach. So they'll tend to reject video samples from a classroom that just does not look like theirs. So thinking about those aspects of context. Length, in general, you're going to want to work with short clips, 3-5 minute. Even a full lesson, you probably want to excerpt it down to like a story arc of the lesson that could be watched in about 20 minutes, because we know people really cannot attend and be actively observing for that long. We do when we are live in classrooms, for example, observing, but even an experienced observer has a hard time watching a full video lesson and taking detailed notes because it's just a little too much data. The angle, do you want the whole class? Do you want just a small group? Do you want just two partners doing a turn and talk? Positioning and moving of the camera is also a consideration. Audio is very, very important when you are listening to talk in classrooms, and it's one of the more challenging aspects to capture. But in other cases, you could even turn the audio off and simply watch movement patterns. So depending on what you need, you may or may not need great audio. And then think about other artifacts that can accompany the video. So if you could get, for example, the student work that was produced in that video lesson, some transcripts of the talk, the teacher's lesson plan, the teacher's reflection, anything that goes with the video can be very helpful to create a case that you can really utilize quite a bit, even across different courses in the program. A lot of questions come up around, how do I get this video? You know, where does it come from? And to simplify it, I kind of put into two categories, which is curate and cultivate. So the curate is really looking for available video that you can find either from free resources online, and I have a big set of those in my book, but I also provided some for you in our resources that we're going to share here today. And really that takes some doing, because even if you find something that you think is going to work, of course, you really have to look at it. And when you are trying to find a particular practice, you could look and look for video and may not find what you exactly want. So when you're curating, it's better to have more of a general focus, more open. Maybe it's more just learning to look. But when you want a very specific focus, it's often easier to cultivate, which means that you create the video yourself. Either you as the faculty create it, which we're going to hear about in one of our presentations, or it's an assignment for your student teachers that they do it, and you harvest the video off of their assignments. So if you're looking for a particular practice, like a video of turn and talk, then you assign that, they video it, and out of the many that are turned in, there's probably one or two that you could use. So that's something that we can answer more later, but in the projects you're going to see presented today, there's kind of a combination of both. Because when you're preparing students for working with video assignments, you're often going to use a combination of curated as well as them making their own. And I put here, use familiar technology, because I know there's a lot of questions about technology, permission forms, logistics, which we're not going to get into in this session, but just to say that you don't need expensive equipment. It's generally better that we all use equipment we're familiar and comfortable with, which could even just be our phone when we're recording. Okay, so briefly, all of the activities that you're going to see shared now by our faculty followed a pre-while post design, so that there's a pre-stage where the faculty member models they model how they want teachers to look at the video, the analysis process. Then there's something that keeps the students, your teacher candidates, focused and involved while they're engaging in the viewing task, which we call structured viewing protocol. So something that scaffolds or guides them through the process, and that there's a post where there's a self-reflection or a self-analysis of the process of using video. So one of the biggest findings across all of the research on video in teacher learning is that it's not very effective on its own. It is really only effective when scaffolded, when structured. Just giving someone their video to watch is not too effective. So that's why we really have a lot of scaffolds, both longitudinally across the teacher ed program and also within specific tasks that are designed. So we're going to get into the projects now. Yeah, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Laura. And Laura won't plug it herself, but Laura's book is phenomenal for all of the resources to be able to do everything that she's talking about. So I'm just going to keep plugging that. It was really hard to choose which projects to use. We will give you access to all 20 projects. So you will have 20 different examples, but we really decided to choose 6 projects, from 2 from the beginning, in the beginning of somebody's program, 2 in the middle, and 2 as end. And again, we want to thank everybody that has done these projects. They will all be available, but we picked 3 from Hunter and 3 from Rick. We're going to have the first 2 people present about the beginning programs, and then we're going to stop for some questions. So along the way, as Sarika and Jen Lin are presenting, if you have any questions, please put them in the question and answer box, and we will stop after those 2, have them answer some questions, and then we'll go on to the next 2, stop and answer some questions, and then we'll do the final 2 and some questions, and then bring it all back together if that works for everybody. So we're going to start, and I know it works for everybody and nobody can say anything, so it has to, right? The first, we're going to start with Sarika Gupta is going to present her, I'm sorry, one more thing. All of the presentations you're going to hear right now, we've tried to focus them on the why they chose video for this assignment and how they use video. So that's really the frame, the why and the how. So if Sarika wants to start hers, thank you so much.
Hi, yes. Hi, Laura, Julie. Thank you so much for bringing us together to learn from each other. So yeah, I will start. I am an assistant professor in early childhood special ed at Hunter College. And my why, so this was the assignment that I developed was for the first course in our program, in which students are learning about the variability of development. And so just to give you a little bit about the why, in early intervention and in early childhood special ed, we partner with families to support children, and how we communicate with them and how we gather information from them really matters. And one of the things that students do is they conduct interviews with families. So they're not only expected to kind of learn how to conduct the interview, but they're also developing observational skills at the same time. So it's a lot as a first go. And so I thought it would be a great way to kind of use video as a teaching tool to guide their noticings. So what I did was I recorded myself interviewing a family member so they could see what it looked like. And they were supposed to ask about family system components. So there were 5 in particular, and I'll just quickly name them: characteristics, composition of a family, function and goals, life cycle, and their adaptation and homeostasis. So they sound really technical, and I wanted to give them an example of what it looked like. So that was kind of the pre, and then what they did was they went and they listened to it, and I created a structured listening guide to help them identify those 5 components. And then they went and interviewed their own families. And instead of video recording, we asked them to audio record as a start, because we weren't sure about how the permissions would work. And we were kind of, going through changes. with the pandemic going remote and everything. So we thought we would keep it really simple, give them an opportunity to try a new audio recording tool. And then they used the structured listening guide to look for evidence of those 5 components. And then we came back together as a group. They checked in with each other about how the overall experience went, what they noticed, what biases came up. And they started to use that information to identify strengths that they have for themselves, what they noticed about their own ability to gather information. And then as well, they started to identify things that they needed to work on and areas of knowledge they needed to build moving forward in the program. It was a lot of fun. They really had a great time.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. And we're going to share a link with you. Laura, I don't know if you want to put the link in the chat bar where you put it so that you can see these projects. I forgot to do that. I apologize.
No, it's a problem. I'm going to put that in the chat. I don't want to distract from my screen share. So
Okay.
if you don't mind going to yours.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay, perfect. All right. Sorika, beautiful. Thank you so much. And Jenlyn.
Hi there. Thank you again for having us. My name is Jenlyn Fury, and I'm an assistant professor in the school psychology program at RIC. The course that I chose for this project is an Introduction to Educational Psychology course. And this is a general education course that's taken by pre-service teachers in their early first or second semester, typically. And it's also a course that psychology majors and non-pre-service teachers take. So I wanted to make sure that this assignment met the needs of everybody in the class. And since the focus is educational psychology, and we talk about a lot of different concepts and theories when it comes to teaching and learning, video analysis seemed like a really perfect way to help everybody to see what this looks like in action. So rather than having students record themselves, again, this is an introductory level course, and we have non-teaching students taking the course. So what I did was I found an existing video that was authentic of classroom instruction and took a 4-minute clip from that and had students observe it through a systematic observation process. And this was really a learning to look task in terms of getting students to just notice low inference observations of what a teacher is doing in the classroom. So for this assignment, I chose to kind of really hone in and focus on the behavior of teachers asking questions and to think more critically about what the purpose of the question would be. So for example, in class, we talk about the concept of scaffolding and how you can use scaffolding to support learning. And that's part of this video analysis assignment, is having the students watch the video and identify where a teacher was using questioning really as a way to scaffold. So in the assignment, kind of one of the main goals of it is for students to get experience with a systematic, more scientific process of observing classroom behaviors, observing teacher behaviors, transcribing every time that the teacher asked a question, coding the questions, whether they were asked to the entire group or to an individual student, giving instances of questions that were used for rehearsing information, for scaffolding. So there was transcription, coding, summarizing, kind of an analysis. And at the end of this, students reflected on just what that experience was like. So that's kind of the why, is that it gave teachers experience with, pre-service teachers experience with starting to look. And it also helped for the psychology students to get practice with that systematic scientific process of analyzing. The how, the resource that they'll be sharing from Laura's book is excellent. And I definitely, if you're thinking about doing something like this with an existing video, I would look to that list, because there's a lot of existing authentic classroom videos that are available. So finding the right video to match your objective is where I would definitely suggest starting. And then I'd also would suggest that you complete the assignment yourself if you're doing something like a learning to look, and just make sure that it makes sense and it works out the way that you were hoping for it to. But overall, it was a really great experience. Students had really positive things to say about it. And I'm excited to kind of keep adapting it and look at other behaviors in the classroom, such as teacher use of specific praise, classroom management behaviors, and those kinds of things.
Thank you so much, Jenlyn. There are a few questions, but I just wanted to also let everybody know in the chat bar, we put a link in there a few different times. That's where you can find the actual projects that everybody's talking about. And there is a copy of the slideshow as well, and some other resources. Am I forgetting anything there, Laura?
Sorry, I'm muted. That was great, Julie. Thank you. I'm just going to share on my shared screen. I'm going to go to that link. It's a Padlet link. And like Julie said, she put it in the answered area of Q&A. She also put it in the chat area of this Zoom. It is, I think, an incredible act of generosity of these 20 faculty members, 20 faculty members, 10 from Hunter and 10 from Rick, who have shared their projects with you. So you can peruse them. We've organized them in early, mid, and late program. We've tried to keep the titles fairly generic. Even if the project is, let's say, as Jenlyn just described, it was an ed psych course. It doesn't mean that you couldn't use a very similar assignment. We just ask that you credit the faculty authors as you do adapt these projects. And then, like Julie said, in the resources area, we have our PowerPoint that we've used today. I've included 2 quick at-a-glance briefs that I wrote for the City University of New York's teacher ed programs on video as virtual fieldwork, and a particular activity that you can do. A blog post that I did recently on digital teaching and using video. And this is just a photo of the book. This is a recent systematic literature review of the work on video analysis in teacher learning, especially with a focus on how we facilitate it. So those materials are all here for you. So I hope that you are happy you came and you stayed here to this point. We are planning to go up until 12:30, but we understand some of you may not be able to stay. So we did want to let you know what the Padlet link was. So I'm going to pop back over here. If there's any questions about what Sari or Jenlyn have shared, please post them in there. I think, Julie, do you think we should just go ahead to the next one right now?
I do. I think just because of timing, and we're trying, if some of you, we're trying to answer questions along the way that you might have in the question and answer. So yeah, I think we should go to the middle project. Okay. And I'm curious, Maria, are you still here? I know that Maria had to leave, and I just want to make sure maybe she could go first.
Maria Lawrence, is that the
Yes.
Maria?
Yes, Maria Lawrence. Sorry, there are 2 Marias.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to answer for the other Maria. So
Thank
yes,
you.
I'm still here.
Okay, so maybe we can have Maria Lawrence go first, because I know that she has to jump off sooner, and then we can have Kathy present. And both of these projects were middle of program projects. So Maria, if you want to get started, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your interest. And it's great hearing about other people's projects as well. So I teach a course that is teaching science in the elementary school. It also includes health and is taken by students seeking initial elementary certification. And some of them are general science majors, math majors, special education majors. So it's quite the diverse audience of students. The reason why I chose to use video is with the advent of the change to the next generation science standards. And I use the word change not to ignore the concept of reformational waves, is to try to facilitate what I would refer to as an enhancement of meaningful applied instruction in science or STEM learning environments. So to contextualize that statement a little bit, within the next generation science standards are what are referred to as science and engineering practices. More broadly, I think they are referred to as hands-on opportunities for students to engage with objects and systems and those types of things. And that's perfectly fine at the surface level. But to break those 8 science and engineering practices down so that they're not looked upon simply as skills, but as cognitive energy and expression and conceptual development is a challenge, quite frankly, not only with pre-service teachers, but with teachers who are in service. So I chose video in order to try to find a resource and utilize that resource to generate in my students an opportunity to think about how teachers rely on those hands-on, minds-on moments to facilitate the acquisition not only of just knowledge, but confidence in the learner to ask questions, to define problems, to develop or use models, to engage in argument from evidence, to construct explanations, and some of the other science and engineering practices. So the goal is for students to understand that scientific knowledge develops, and that it's the practices that lead to or engage learners in and scientists in the direct involvement of the practice of science. So how did I do that? I did what I think so many STEM instructors would do, and that was I went to the Exploratorium in San Francisco, not in person, but I went to the Exploratorium Teacher Institute website where I was able to identify 2 teachers who were videotaped, engaged in instruction. And the reason why I chose it is not only because of the high quality of professional development associated with the Exploratorium, but because of the way that they structured the videos. They broke down a lesson, these 2 lessons, into those 2 to 7 minute increments that Laura was speaking about earlier, making it possible to look at the fluidity of a lesson through the lens of isolating their observations to these science and engineering practices. And the reason for that is none of these practices ever happen in isolation. There's always elements of multiple aspects of all of these processes, which sometimes makes it difficult for teachers, especially rising teachers, to be able to determine how best to interpret and situate discourse with learners and as they're in the process of learning when they're engaged in science investigation. So when students and we watched the video together the first time, and we had some conversation about what it would mean to observe, to analyze what's going on in the videos. They had, if I remember correctly, a week and a half to 2 weeks to observe the entire video and think about where in the video are you seeing students, the learners, engaged in these practices. And so we had to come up with a viewing guide. So we created a viewing grid that was really the practices. And they were able to indicate over these various segments, 7 or 8 temporal segments, where they were seeing evidence of learners engaged in these practices in a very conscious way in order to begin to make knowledge. I chose a life science lesson. It was about snails. I also went to the Exploratorium because these lessons that were videotaped are with mixed language populations as multilingual learners in there. So there are some other components to observing these videos that we could go back to later on in the course. So this happened very early in the beginning of the course as students were beginning to read the framework for K-12 science education.
So, and Maria, I'm going to stop you there because we want to hear all the details, but we want to make sure the other 3 people can go, and we can come back if there are any questions, or maybe like last thing you want to say.
Oh no, that was the last thing that I wanted to say. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Maria. Kathy, do you want to jump in?
Yes, hi everyone. This is Kathy Furlong-Silverio. I'm a clinical professor at Hunter College. I'm excited to learn from all of you today and to see everyone's project. So the why for my project, it's basically writing lesson plan and video reflection. And this project was part of a long-standing, larger project in our department that I had to whittle down due to COVID-19 right in the midst of it. So I focused in just on the lesson plan part. And ultimately, the reason why I wanted to really zone in on this for our students in mid-program is they haven't had a ton of experience with explicit instruction at this point and creating lesson plans. And even for our students who are teachers themselves, they may have had different experiences or standards that have been expected of them related to explicit instruction or how their lesson plans are written. So I took this opportunity to really dive deep and help support their understanding of what we meant by explicit instruction, especially for students with learning disabilities in the program that we're in. So ultimately, what I ended up doing was I wanted to make sure that they had the opportunity to learn how to observe explicit instruction for themselves so that they would understand more deeply what we were expecting of them. So I really had to provide the instruction that Laura was talking about, where we do a lot of noticing and talked a lot about how to take low and high inference notes at the very beginning. So I shared with them an explicit writing lesson via video and had them be the observers of that lesson without any prior knowledge. And then we took those notes and had them bring them into class and break them down into low and high inference notes after I modeled for them what that could look like. And I shared with them a video viewing guide. And I think the video viewing guide was really one of the strongest tools in this project to help them understand what was expected of them as far as their own instruction, both in a lesson plan, but then also in their practice when they were to video themselves. So after using the viewing guide with the video that they observed, the conversations just the level elevated immediately. And the students felt a lot more confident approaching writing their own lesson plans for this project. So they went off and did that. They wrote their lesson plans and came back and we shared them for peer workshops. So again, a lot of attention and time went into helping them feel like they could create a really strong explicit lesson. And then they were expected to video themselves doing just that part of the lesson, the mini lesson part, where they used a gradual release model of the I do, we do, you do approach. And the students then had to reflect on their video using the video viewing guide. So it was a pretty straightforward activity, but it also really elevated the process for them and the projects that came out of it, and hopefully their long-term instruction.
Kathy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And, so I think we're just going to go right into the final 2. I also do want to say, I know that people are on the Padlet right now looking at all of the different projects. When this is over, we do have many of the professors are on here as well to answer questions. Like I said, we just couldn't have everybody present, but we will have time for people to ask questions of some of the other projects as well. And I know somebody's asking a music ed person, which is music ed question, which is great because we now have Rob and Marcus are going to present their projects from the end of the program. And we're going to start with Marcus, if you could start us off.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's great to be here and thank you for inviting me. So my video project occurs in the supervised teaching courses, which in our course in the TESOL program at Hunter College are basically the last 2 courses that students take within our graduate program. So at this time, they've had a lot of practice in capturing video, analyzing video, and there's sort of a learning spectrum that's happening where students are becoming much more intentional and specific into what they're looking for in their recordings and also their technical capacity in terms of being able to capture video. And by the way, I'm a clinical lecturer in TESOL at Hunter College. So the why, I think in our course, when we think of preparing students to enter into the field, or in many of our students actually have to take the EdTPA, we really wanted to develop capacity in students' ability to look, see, and analyze video and analyze their practice. And we also wanted to shift the analysis and reflection to put a little bit more of that mental work or mental, the challenge on the student, the individual student, rather than the supervisor. So there's sort of a shift in responsibilities. We through the video analysis, we encourage them to lead and facilitate the coaching conversation. And we want the candidate to be able to develop the tech competencies that are necessary for EdTPA. So I think the video project is serving a couple different aims. One, they are absolutely developing the technical capacity that they need to be successful in the EdTPA. But the EdTPA in Task 2 and TESOL requires deep video analysis with focused questions around, how does your planning, instruction, and assessment have an impact on students? So we actually use some of those same guiding questions in the video analysis project as reflection questions for a paper. I should say the project it's developmental and evaluative at this point. And we have students in our project focus on 3 guiding questions. So they record 20 minutes of video, they watch the video on their own, and they answer these 3 guiding questions and then have a coaching conversation with their clinical supervisor. The questions are, what target language am I modeling or seeing in the video? What evidence can I see of students using the target language? Our focus being in TESOL is on language production. Where do I see myself fostering peer-to-peer interaction with the target language? And simply, what am I noticing that I want to improve on in my instruction? So those questions are also parallel and very similar to what's asked in the EdTPA portfolio that they're preparing in Supervised Teaching 2. It's sort of a parallel project that they end up submitting to Pearson. And I mean, there's a lot of benefits, obviously. I mentioned a little bit of the shift in positionality where the teacher candidate is now the facilitator and lead learner. I think that it definitely strengthens and supports the skills that are necessary for EdTPA in terms of justifying practice, examining impact on planning instruction and students' language learning. And I think because they're presenting to their clinical supervisors, I've noticed that students are really kind of pushed to their learning edge, and they really want to create a strong, they don't want to show up and just have an empty conversation. So they really dig deep into both the strengths and the weaknesses of their video and how they can improve. And obviously there's a lot of enhanced knowledge on technologies. So by this point, some students still aren't comfortable with technology and capturing video and getting the sound correct. So in our course, we make sure that that's taken care of early on. That's sort of the why. As far as the how, I should say that we have Supervised Teaching 1 and 2, and both of those classes have 4 observations. One of those observations is a video observation. We piloted this course in all 6 of our Supervised Teaching courses last fall, and the project is very much scaffolded by prior coursework and also the reflection packets. And that's pretty much it for the why and how. And I'd love to hear any questions.
Thank you, Marcus. That's awesome. And I love the specifics of the questions. And in our Q&A, I've been trying to answer a lot of them, but definitely post any and all questions there as they're coming up for you while we're together still. So we're gonna, I think, Julie, go on Rob.
Yep, thank you, Rob, and thank you, Marcus.
Hi, everyone, and thanks to letting me be part of this. I'm Rob Franzblau. I teach an instrumental music practicum course to students who are in the year before their student teaching, so mostly juniors. By this time, they've had quite a few experiences using video. Obviously, in addition to written and spoken feedback to the teacher candidates on their teaching, video is so powerful that our school has been using it, I think, since the 1980s, before I started teaching there. But it was those big clunky VHS cameras. The lessons were recorded, but then the review happened with the teacher candidate and the college instructor sitting in the same room, hitting the play button for the first time, which, as Laura mentioned, can be a very high anxiety thing. I mean, the students are almost always looking more at, you know, what they were wearing than what they were saying or what they were doing in teaching. So it was great, but it produced too much anxiety. We've also, by the way, been using this in music education for a long time in conducting pedagogy, where students who are learning to conduct musical ensembles are video recorded and they watch those videos. It's a powerful tool for that. But with Laura's help, we've been able to refine it a lot, I think. The problem that I've always had with teaching teachers how to teach in music is that there are really no models for them to see other than what they may have seen in the teachers that they have had. And if there is some description of a different way of teaching or how to do this or how to do that, it's generally just written description, or not even description. It's more of generalizations and theory about how to do it. So for a long time, I've been trying to figure out how to do this. And with Laura's encouragement, what I did is I went to great music teachers in my area that I know in public schools, and I just asked them if I could videotape them teaching. And they didn't have to do anything special. I didn't need a lesson plan from them. I just know they're a great teacher and I want to capture some of that on video. And all of them were fine with that. So what I did is I took a nice little camera in, set it up on a tripod in the back of the room, and just turned it on and watched them teach. Took some notes while that was going on, so that I could develop and curate a library of video clips to use with my students, showing them what good teachers do when they're teaching. These video clips were assigned as assignments to the students based in 7 different modules that I came up with, 7 different skills that I thought were important in instrumental music teaching. The one that's in the lesson, or the description that's in Padlet of mine, deals with the skill I call claiming the space, so that the teacher candidate moves freely throughout the entire classroom, maintaining discipline and assessing student performance, not always from the front of the room. And in instrumental music in particular, that's a real hard habit to break, because we have a music stand and a podium and we tend to stay there and we miss a lot. So I wanted students to see how a good teacher moves around the classroom. I caught that in one of my visits to a classroom. And for this assignment, usually I would edit down the videos to 2 to 3 minute long clips and show them to our students, and that was a video observation assignment. For this one, instead, I put the entire 32-minute lesson up there and asked them to just observe when the teacher moved away from the front of the room, off of the podium. It's actually easier to download the video from Google Classroom or Google and view it in something that has a fast forward button. So sound wasn't really as important for this part of the assignment, because it's a low inference sort of observation. At what time they had to give the timestamp, and where did the teacher move to? Very low inference sort of observations. But then I asked the students to go in and try and infer what was the purpose of the teacher doing that. What were they working on? How did it work? What, you know, what was the point of it? And then they would fill out a short response form. In addition to that, they had a short reading assignment around that same skill. Then they would create their lesson plan, revise it, teach it, videotape themselves teaching that, and then do kind of the same observation on themselves that they did on that model teaching, where they would notice when they moved away from the podium and what they were, what their goals were for that. So that was one part of one skill of 7 different skills that I was able to use video of model teaching to help the students gain a little objectivity about themselves and view their teaching from, you know, another perspective.
You managed to boil that down so well. Thank you. Very, very, and I just think, you know, they have that everything you need to know, you can learn from the kindergarten. It's like everything you need to know, you can learn from a music educator, teacher educator, because all that podium is such a good metaphor for, you know, standing frozen at the board, which we have always a challenge with as teachers.
Thank
So
you.
Julie, do you want to?
Yeah, I absolutely. We want to look at the future. I'm going to just keep saying this. I just want to thank the 6 of you that presented. We're getting lots of notes about how helpful this is for people and how generous you all have worked so hard on these projects. I know how hard you've worked, and to share them is kind of the best of who we are as teacher educators and professional educators. So I just really appreciate that. We want to talk a little bit on Laura, if you could go forward.
Yes.
The future, we have no idea what the future is, but we really want to talk about this in two, we want to frame this a little. This is a timely moment. I think more than ever, we're going to have to depend on video as a way of preparing teachers. We have no idea what's going to happen in the fall. Anyone I think that says that they do is I don't know. So what we wanted to do and why we wanted to do this is many of us are going to depend on video to prepare our future teachers. And clinically rich practice is still really, really important. We don't want to lose that piece. We don't want this to go back. Don't want us to go back in time where our students don't get to practice anything until they're in student teaching. So we think that using video for virtual fieldwork is going to be essential. One thing that's really lucky right now is if we are able to get into classrooms that are being taught online, recording is pretty easy because we now have a button to do it. And it is not going to be, we are by no means, and I want to echo what Laura said before, video is not taking the place of being in a classroom, being in a school. But I think given where we are, this is a possibility. You know, this is something that we're all going to have to depend on. And we really have to harness this tool right now to do some virtual field work. I know up at Rick, we've had our students have just jumped into Google Classroom, into Zoom, into Google Meets in this spring. And we could record that again with permissions and all of those pieces. What we want to caution here is it is timely, there is urgency, but we don't want to lose the why of what we're doing and why we're doing this. This is not about video for video's sake. We were very specific in wanting each of our presenters to talk about the why we do this first, why we use video, and be really clear, and then to the how. So it's really, it stays on that this is still about good practice, and there are still objectives and standards and reasons for why we want what we want our students to do, and video is the tool to get there. The other piece for possibilities, we want critically reflective practitioners, and being able to use video starting on day one, starting with videos of other people and then videos of themselves, we are giving students, our teacher candidates, and all community workers practice in how to be a reflective practitioner and how to do this. I think what Rob said was really important. I don't know about all of you, I have flashbacks to my undergrad and that very first time I was videotaped, and my answer was, I'm never wearing that sweater again. But how can we start that earlier? How do we, if we start on day one with students, it becomes part of their practice, and we do look at our own practice, and we can get past what our sweater looks like into how am I engaging with my students? How am I being a critically reflective practitioner? I think it's also really important to name the possibilities of starting on day one. We are asking students to unpack their own bias. And with Laura's help for our entire program at Rhode Island College, we have really, again, started in a 101 class, having students unpack their system one thinking versus their system two thinking, to really engage in what are my first thoughts and how are those first thoughts informed by my own bias. And I think more now than ever, it's being exposed that this is the work that we have to do with our teachers. We have to do it across the entire population of our earth, but we have a captive audience right now to do this work with our teacher candidates. And video analysis allows us to really dig into this reflective teaching that we want our students to do. I don't know if you want to add anything there, Laura.
No, I mean, I think you hit on really the deeper elements, which I think we can get very excited about, all of our, or either excited or frantic as we plan and replan and try to re-envision. But I think the important takeaway again is moving into really a mindset of looking at classroom interaction with fascination, without judgment, and that's what keeps us as teacher educators continually interested in going to classrooms. It never is the same. It's never something that you can't learn or notice something new. And even as we have to substitute some of our live teaching and live observation with video or digital teaching, there's still a lot of potential for those core elements of those learning and having new things revealed about ourselves and about our learners through that stop and rewind aspect. So I think I'm just going to move, Julie, to the last, which is our thanks. And if you want to direct people to the feedback form, I'm trying to sort of answer the questions as they're coming in, but we definitely want to answer a lot of them, and you'll have a space to do that in the feedback form. Also, we probably need to put the link, oh, you did already, in the chat, as well as the Q&A. And I really also want to echo what Julie said, just tremendous thanks to all of the 20 faculty members, to our deans and our schools of ed, to the presenters today, and all of you who've participated. And it's great to see all of you posting and sharing your ideas. We hope that this Padlet I think it's a treasure trove of materials, and it's crazy that we are so proprietary at times about, our work. I think it's really much more dynamic to be able to interact with the materials. So I'm going to post the link to the Padlet.
I'll do that right now.
Again, okay, fab. And again, those additional resources as well. We are going to, I just thought of this, Julie, but I'm going to very quickly, let's see if maybe we can just put our videos on, Julie. So let's see if I can do that. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Start video. Okay. So we're actual people. We were a little disembodied there with the video, but if you do put in your info on the form, if you give us some feedback and also questions that you want to ask, we hope to continue this as a community of practice and potentially a publication. We'd love to involve any of you who are interested in doing work. I know some people are posting about the 360 camera, VR. I mean, there's so many places to go with video. So please stay in touch with us. I'm going to raffle away one book to someone who answers on the form. So we're going to randomly pick somebody from the form. And I will put
The feedback
I'll
form.
put this in the mail. Yeah, the feedback form that Julie has put in the post there. So we really appreciate everybody's time. Julie and I will stay here for another 10 minutes or so, just to see if anybody wants to post any questions in. And we really appreciate this. This was a kind of a crazy notion, and we just took it big. We go big, us, me and Julie. So we do. So we thank you so much. This was a little nerve-wracking for us with the webinar and all the people, but we really enjoyed having you here. The feedback form needs to be sent to panelists and attendees.
Oh, I got it. Thank
Okay.
you, Trish.
Thank you, Trish. And I'm so sorry that some of the other faculty weren't able to get on and speak, but they are speaking for themselves through their wonderful assignments that are shared on the Padlet. And we welcome hearing from you. Our emails are on the presentation, which is on your Padlet. I tried to link everything there. Actually, we should probably put the form on there too. And we'll be following up. So those of you who may know people who couldn't come today, no worries. We will be sending out the link to the Padlet and the link to the form and the link to this recording to everyone who registered as soon as that's ready. So thanks, everybody. Have a really good day.
Thank you all so much.
All right, I'm gonna just take a look at some of these questions. The feedback form.
I keep putting in,
I know, maybe look in the chat if anyone's still looking
Yeah.
for it.
I've been posting in there as well.
Okay, great. And thanks, everybody. Thanks the Ricks and the Hunters.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Rob.
Nice to see you, Rob. I like that picture of you.
Thank you. I don't look that way anymore. That was that was my confirmation picture.
I love it. I love it. So Dermot, if you want to stop recording, that's
Will do.
totally fine. Thank you so much, Dermot, for being here for us.
No problem at all.
Thank you so much, Dermot.
My pleasure. I'll get you guys a shared folder with all these materials shortly.
Wonderful.
Fabulous.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Julie. It's Jenlyn.
Gemma, you are amazing as always. Thank
Uh,
you. It's so weird that you're in the same town as me right now.
No, I know. But yeah, get in touch anytime. This is really cool to hear from everybody, and hope to talk to you soon.
All right,
Oh,
thank
yeah,
you.
same. Thanks a lot, Jenlyn.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good summer. All right.
I wish there was time for everybody to share.
I know. I
It's
feel
so hard.
it is. It is. And I mean, it's also a lot to process. So even if you could, like, you couldn't even absorb everybody's presentation because even when we were live and we had everybody, you kind of like get saturated. Like, what project was that? Whose
Yep.
is what?
But I'm glad that
So-
I think that the Padlet is really helpful.
So I'm just going to go over to answer some of these. And I'm sure Dermot will have the recording very quickly, so I'll be able to do that.
We're getting lots of people are answering for our feedback form.
Oh, great. It's because they're going to get a free book. No. I have a few sitting here. I was like, oh, maybe that'll make people fill it out. You never know.
Well, because it's the best book ever. I keep mine right here because I keep like, look, because it's amazing.
Wait, I need to do a screenshot. Wait. Let me move all my things to the side.
There are still people on here watching us like we're crazy people. Just
We're crazy people. All right, wait, I got to do a Shift, Alt, 4, and then I got to wait. Okay.
I know. Thank you, Lona. We know we're still live.
Look up. I couldn't believe my audio didn't work when we started. That was terrible. Okay, I'm just going to answer some of these questions in the
Yep.
Q&A. Send.
I'll answer some of the.
Okay.
I love that once you answer a question, it goes into somewhere else. This is so much easier than watching the chat bar.
It is. I mean, the only challenge is, in a way, I wish they took away the chat, because it's
Yeah.
confusing because people are in two places, but people were, I think they got it, And
Trish,
you're right. Then it moves and it's clear. You don't have to scroll. Who had a question? Where was it? You're right.
Trish, thanks so much. And I didn't know you were up in Vermont. That's so much nicer than here right now.
Yeah, I'm in the woods. It's
Oh,
good.
that's so lovely. I'm really jealous.
It's been good. But anyway, thank you so much. I'm gonna sign off, but I appreciate it.
Thanks, Trish.
I'm sorry people didn't get to hear your stuff, but thank
Oh,
you.
no worries. No worries at all.
Yeah, I know your project is great.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All righty, take care all.
Take care, Trish.
Okay.
Safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, this is really nice. The Christian Gregory.
What, I missed that.
The Padlet is a great act of generosity. I can't thank you enough for your collective work and spirit during such challenging times.
Aw,
It's so kind. All right.
really fast.
I know. I know I knew I would go to like 30 minutes, but I think, it's that beginning. You always lose like 5 to 10 minutes at the front of a Zoom because you got to let people come in.
Yep.
Oh my God, everyone is now emailing Dermot trying to get videos from Hunter. I thought that woman was from Hunter, so that's why I gave her the email, but.
Oops. Okay.
All right, let's see. Type answer. Yeah, this is great how it moves off. Then
Yep.
you know it's clear.
You have 58 feedback forms ready filled out. People want your book
They want a free book.
because it's amazing.
I felt a little like, oh, I'm really being cheesy or something.
No, it answers a lot of the questions. It's all those tools. It's yeah.
All right, I'm just gonna dismiss that one. And then you can dismiss some of them.
This is really amazing. I hope these are the questions that we wanted to have them answer.
Do you want to add one now?
Did you see this person? Joan Hanner. Thank you, Joan, if you're still there. This is our collaboration. This is what we do.
We take pictures of ourselves. All right, I think all the Q&As are cleared.
Yep, they are.
Oh,
It was really, really nice of your dean.
Oh, I know. That was great. I'm glad he was able to come.
Yeah.
And say something that was really nice. Well, when I got to that slide and I saw the names of the deans, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's here. And I had invited him as a panelist, but I didn't see him in the panelists. But I'm like, wait, let me just check attendees. And he was under the attendees, but you can enable people to talk who are on that. So that's good. Do you know Joan?
I do not know Joan. Do you?
No. Joan is awesome.
Joan should be on here with us just chatting.
I know. Joan is fun. Okay. Amazing and extremely helpful. Well, that's very good to hear. I love this. It was presented very well. I love this person. Oh. This Linda Sandlin in the chat, going back a bit. You see that?
I don't know.
Go back to, there's all caps, Miriam Campos, and then right before it.
Oh.
No.
Do you know Miriam?
I think she is at Hunter. She might be a part-time. Oh, good. All righty. Oh, Susan Zoll. She's awesome. She wrote a nice comment.
Where do you see that?
Way back,
Oh, okay.
12:22 p.m.
12 what?
12:22 p.m. Just going back to the times. Oh, there's a lot of 1222. Yeah.
Oh,
Susan.
Lisa was there. Aw.
Oh, Christine Clayton. She was the one who came with us to the new educator, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
New
that
York.
was nice. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Megan was here.
I know, I loved it when I saw Megan's name.
I know. I'm like, oh, Megan's here.
Oh,
God, we got excellent webinar. All right.
high five.
Shh. All right. Everyone can go back online. I told everyone to get off all internet. And you see I'm wearing makeup?
You are, I put on makeup too.
Did you? Yeah, we look good.
I did. And to the 14 people who are still on watching us, this is us.
Enjoy. That's some free materials. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I think that we're good. We have 65 people have given us feedback.
That's really good.
This is, I think we got really positive things.
Oh, fabulous. And
That
I
was-
love to,
What's that?
oh, this is nice. Can you read this? My colleague at Hunter.
Aw.
That's so nice.
Aw. This was good and really stressful. I have
When
to,
I couldn't hear, I was like,
when you couldn't hear, I was like, oh my God, am I gonna have to do that part? Because that's Laura. Like, they're gonna get
well,
my-
I'm glad. That's why I'm glad Dermot's there, because I guess you would eventually think of just rebooting your computer, but I wouldn't want to do it at right that moment, but that did work.
Missy, hopefully you can hear us. You just jumped on. There will be a recording and we will share it with all the participants.
Yeah. I'm so glad Dermot did that for us. And I know it's going to be done properly.
I know. I want to send him a thank you.
Oh, you know what? That would be really good. And I'll give you his email and our dean's email.
If you would, that'd be great.
Okay.
God, there's just so much to say.
I know. I tried to
Oh, this presentation was well structured, informative, and extremely helpful.
wow. I'm feeling good. Okay, tell me some more good stuff.
I'm going to keep reading them to you.
Okay.
It was an informative session. I'm very grateful to your team for sharing not just what you did, but also providing resources so we can better understand it. There were things raised that that this person really needs to reflect on that she hadn't thought about. This person's writing a dissertation and this is going to be helpful.
Nice. That's very good.
Thank you. It was a great webinar. I love the idea of unpacking your bias. Bravo. I'll tell you after.
Thank you. I
Appreciate
haven't worn jewelry in 4 months or whatever we've been on quarantine. I mean, except for just a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm myself again.
Good.
I need to do a lot of webinars today. I have another one at 1:30.
What are you doing?
Nothing. I mean, it's no big deal. It's just New York TESOL shit, but ooh. I'm still on here. Okay. Well, enjoy whoever you are. Actually, I can see who they are. Let me go to the participants. Who's still here? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to thank you so much for coming, everyone. I don't want anyone to hear me cursing, so I'm going to remove you now from the session. So
funny who's there.
So I'm going just so I can continue to chat with you, and I'm going to just because people might have just walked away, they're doing something else, getting coffee or whatever.
I'm helping you too. I'll go from the bottom.
Okay, I'll start from the top. Remove and then okay. Yeah, that was the other thing. I was like, now I don't see my Oh, you know what? We're still live on YouTube.